All right, so I wanted to make a video or a series of videos actually about my favorite companies in every sector. But first, I kind of just wanted to go over the market quickly, see where things are at. S&P has been doing really well lately. Same, I mean, basically everything's up. Bitcoin's up. Um, Nasdaq's way up as well. Um, the one thing I would point out here when it comes to these markets is I think things are a little overbought right now. I think we're due for a correction. How low do we go? Do we go back into the 3,000s? Do we go below the 36, 37 low? I think we're going to go back into the 3,000s. Do we test the June lows? I think the jury's still out on that, but I do think we're going to have a correction again, probably in the high 3,000s. But we definitely are overbought right now. But we will see. We will see because if the Fed comes out like next meeting and says, "Yeah, we're going to be done cutting rates by the end of the year," and maybe not only that, we're going to start you know, back to QE then and cutting rates, then that'll probably set the market back up to the mid to high 4,000s in the S&P, and the Nasdaq probably comes close to its highs as well. So we'll see, but I think things are overbought right now. As far as oil goes, again, we're at 91. I am talking about the energy industry right now. So I do have three main companies, although the first thing I would bring up here is of all the sectors, I think if I had to bet money, I think that there's a really good case to be made that the energy sector will be the best performing over the next decade. Um, but I think you're gonna have to pick specific companies, and you're gonna have to be at least you know you're gonna have to time things moderately well because it is going to be volatile, right? It's going to be volatile, but we'll see. We'll see because if we go into some massive stagflationary recession that lasts for 5 years, then I'll be wrong about that. But um, I just think that if things get too bad, the Fed will start to lower rates. They'll bring on QE again, and they'll get things back on track. At least depending on what you consider back on track. In a lot of ways, it's worse than ever. But as far as the stock market's concerned, it'll be better. But again, why do I think energy is going to do so good? Is because there has been massive amounts of underinvestment in this industry, and again, the whole we're going to transition towards renewables is unrealistic. Again, I hate to break it to people, at least in the next 10, 20 years. So we are going to be dependent upon the traditional energy industry for at least another decade or two. I think we may never transition in the way people think we will, but at least in our lifetimes. But that's a different point. So again, the first company here is Devon Energy. Why do I like it? Very profitable, not a lot of debts, not super overpriced. I mean, I think that you can make a case that you can wait until it gets into the 50s, specifically the low 50s to pick it up. Um, the lows it's had on the year, let's see, how low has it gotten? It's gotten to about 51. I mean, earlier in the year. Yeah, so I mean, if you can pick it up in the low to mid 50s, I think that that's a really good deal. I mean, it got up to 78 at one point. It has a very good dividend, over 9%, and I think that's fairly. I mean, if we go over to Finvis, let's see what they're not always accurate, but let's just take their word for it. Their payout ratio is only 49%, but they have their dividend is 7.1. So even if it's 7.1, that's still really good. Even again, I don't know where that payout's at, but again, if you look at their numbers again, 55% return on equity, gross margin, operating margin, very good. Again, looks like a very good company. Very not a lot of debt. Um, so again, I think when it comes to these energy companies, you do want one of two things when it comes to energy companies. You want a company that's paying a very good dividend, or you want companies that are buying back shares, right? Because this is a time when they're very profitable, meaning they had better have a nice dividend, or they better be buying back shares. Um, Next company I wanted to bring up, um, as far as Canadian goes, I wanted to include a Canadian company in here, and they are a very good company. Suncor, again, their dividend isn't quite as good, but again, their numbers look very good as well. If you pull it up here, Let's see where they're at. Again, only about a 4.5% dividend, but again, payout ratio very good, very little debt. Again, gross margin, operating margin pretty good. Return on equity 25%. Again, not quite as good as Devon, I don't think, but they arguably might be more stable, right? And again, if we go to their charts, I mean, daily going back, I mean, if you go back, let's say when did the whole Russia thing? I think it was in like March. I think late February, March. The lowest they've gone is about 29 or so. They're at 30, just below 33 now. So they haven't done as good. But again, you got a solid dividend, and you got a company that I think is going to be over the long run is going to be pretty good. And again, of all the Canadian producers, their numbers look the best, at least in my opinion. Canadian Natural Resources is pretty good too. Again, Occidental Petroleum is a company Buffett and Berkshire is heavily invested in. They don't have a great dividend, but they are aggressively buying back shares, which is good news. Again, I think that there's a myriad of companies that in this sector that are going to do good. Chevron, I think, is a good company too, of the really big ones. I think they're a little bit better than Exxon, but again, that's my opinion. And the last one I wanted to bring up here is Diamondback. They're a company that, again, they don't have a great dividend, but they're growing better. Um, if we go to their numbers here, again, even better. I mean, their operating margins even better. They only have a 2.25 dividend according to Finvis. What is it according to? 2.25 according to Yahoo Finance as well. So that's got to be the right one. Again, 31% return on equity. Again, very little debt. They're growing well. Everything, basically, not everything, but basically everything looks good here. Again, they're above all the moving averages, which is a good sign. Um, Although I think that you would probably want to wait maybe a little bit. I mean, they're at 133. The highest they got was 160. I think if you can get it like in the mid to low 120s, even below 120, I think is a steal of a deal. So again, I think that some of these companies may be a tiny bit overbought, but again, if you can get them, like if oil goes into the 80s, I think it's a good buy. And if it goes even lower, then I think it's a steal, right? So my opinion is, again, obviously my opinion. Do your own due diligence. Again, my opinion. If you are underexposed to oil, anytime you can get a good pullback, and by that I mean in the 80s or especially 70s, that's when you want to buy, right? If you can get a company like Diamondback below 120, I think that that's a steal. If you can get Devon in the low, if it goes below 50, I think that's a steal. Even below 55, that's a steal. Because over the long run, I think because again, I think we're going to see 150, possibly $200 oil within the next decade or two. And when that happens, again, the profitability of these companies is only going to go up. And I mean, if you look at Devon, they're paying a 9%, 7, 8, 9% dividend, and their profitability probably in the long run is only going to go up. So this is going to be a company that's going to be paying over a 10% dividend or 7, 8% dividend, and they're going to be buying back shares, right? Suncor, again, same thing. Basically, all of these companies, right? Chevron's going to do pretty well. Occidental, EOG, Pioneer, those are decent companies as well. Um, but again, if you want to look at the companies that specifically are going to do the best, I think the ones that have a good amount of exposure to natural gas, because natural gas is thought of as a cleaner form of energy than oil. So the ones that are exposed to natural gas will probably do a little bit better. So that's something to point out. Um, but again, this is my best companies, I believe, in the energy sector, which I think very well could be the best performing sector over the next decade. So anyway, if you like the video, hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Check out those links below and follow me on those other platforms.